Staying alive. Staying alive. Staying alive. We're old enough to remember when Saturday Night Fever really was a fever.
Yeah, first grade, man. Second grade for me.
It was really a big deal. It was cultural. I mean, it was like a cultural sensation.
That and Kiss.
Yes, my first favorite band. Yes, Kiss in the Phantom of the Park. I used to walk around with my tape player and my Kiss tapes. Right around the time of Kiss Dynasty. Hey, speaking of dynasties, the Audible, the Dynasty's back Thursday night. We got a schedule, Matt.
Yeah, man.
I think it was 3K on Twitter who said this schedule to me means, gee, I hope we get to play these games on these days. But let's go. Let's just dive in for fun. Let's have fun with this because, you know, we're both really fun guys. Week one. Did you see what the game that's going to open the season?
No. Tell me. Hit me with it.
Houston at Kansas City.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, of course, they're going to add the little subplot of, you know, the whole collapse with Bill O'Brien's crew.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be the Bill O'Brien seeing if he can get revenge against Evan Silva. You know, if Evan Silva thinks that, you know, Bill O'Brien's listening to him, or maybe he is, probably is. You know, those NFL guys, man, they pay more attention than you think. So maybe at least it'll be a fun subplot on Twitter, even if we're playing pretend, you know,
right.
With that whole idea.
Right. I mean, in the wrestling version of the NFL, Bill O'Brien is absolutely a heel, right? Yeah. But Deshaun Watson is kind of like his hostage, you know?
Yeah, he's kind of like
a good guy.
He's like Miss Elizabeth.
Miss Elizabeth. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same thing. Oh, yeah.
See, there we go.
We're on the wavelength tonight, man. So that's a great story because Deshaun Watson can overcome Bill O'Brien. We saw it almost. It was against the Saints, right? This past season. Watson basically single-handedly took on the Saints and almost won. But then there's that Texans defense. Shylander points out Ravens Steelers on Thanksgiving night.
See, I like that.
Saints get the Vikings on Christmas. The Saints get the Vikings in New Orleans on Christmas. There's a score to settle. That's a score to settle, really, now, between Stephon Diggs and then how they left the playoffs last year.
Yeah, sure.
So going down the schedule. Let's just stick with week one. Because, again, you know, I don't want to say a prayer, because really it's going to be based on planning, cooperation, you know, thinking things through.
What day do they have week one for? September as
I think it's the same as ever. Yeah, same as ever.
Okay.
Same as ever.
Okay.
So Cleveland at Baltimore to open the season. Kevin Stefanski, first game. What do you think about that?
I think that that's going to be an interesting game in the sense of how close the Browns can actually play the Ravens. And I think what that will come down to is how well Baker Mayfield plays. What I would love to hear, just if you don't mind, is what are the first 4 games for Cleveland so we can see whether Baker Mayfield has a chance to be in trouble or not.
Right. Well, so what do you think about this? How smoothly do you think this offense is going to be installed? You know, like how is the transition going to go for Baker Mayfield from the offense that he ran last year, from the offense that he ran the year before that, from Oklahoma to Kevin Stefanski, highly structured, which we think is a good thing long term, but short term, since you're talking about first 4 games.
Yeah, I think the bigger thing that I'm worried about is the offensive line. And then if the offensive line gets out of whack and they can't play disciplined football and play as a unit together. I mean, we're going to have more penalties this year probably ever in history unless we have a little bit of a run up to the season. And then the focus is as Russ Landy and I talked about, which would be maybe they try and keep as many of these young players as possible, but maybe not cut as many of their draft picks and just say, you know what, we're going to give them a free year and we're just going to work with the guys that we have unless some of these young guys really show up well, you know, right off the bat. So for Cleveland, that means Jedrick Wills being a big deal there. But I think it's against the Ravens defense. I mean, this is going to be difficult in terms of whether this team can stay disciplined. And if it can, then it can play it close because the defense is going to be decent. But and I think Cleveland's defense will play fast and play well early. And they'll have Garrett back, which will be good. But I think that it's going to come down to Baker Mayfield, and I just don't trust Baker Mayfield at this point. I need to see him for another 6 to 8 games.
Well, there's a lot of layers there, but certainly you would think that Cleveland's defense is going to be tested, right? Like all those new linebackers, Grant Delpit, They're going to be tested. That defense is definitely going to be tested. You mentioned the offensive line. At least they got Jack Conklin. And as you pointed out, this is a Nick Chubb offense. Just like Minnesota is a Dalvin Cook offense, this is a Nick Chubb and to a lesser extent Kareem Hunt offense. So Jack Conklin and Wills should help with that. Should be fun. Hopefully Marquise Brown has an uneventful offseason. You know, he could be fantastic. Can't wait to see Devin Duvernay. Okay, let's go down the list. The Jets at Buffalo. This was actually a thriller in week 1 last year. And it was when CJ Mosley got hurt, and then the Jets just changed as a team. Buffalo didn't look like a team on the rise in that game at all. They looked pretty evenly matched.
Yeah, they did, but I think this year it's going to be different. And I think the Bills have a real good chance of getting off to a hot start because that offensive line has shown cohesion. It's shown some growth. And then you have, Allen, who's made some strides. And you have a two-headed running back attack that I think is going to be pretty strong in addition to that play action game with the receivers that they got. Getting Stephon Diggs is going to be helpful. It's really, again, this all comes down to also Sam Darnold, how good Sam Darnold can be right off the bat, whether this offensive line is going to be cohesive, and whether or not the wide receivers that they have are going to be able to step up to the plate. Brashad Perriman, look, he got better over the past, 18 months, but can he be the primary guy without Godwin and Evans on either side of him, or, Javon, Jarvis Landry and Njoku and folks like that? That's the big question. And of course, Devin Mims, how fast can he acclimate? Because they need him to replace Robbie Anderson to a respect, because all they really have as a proven player is either coming off of an injury, Quincy Enunwa, and I'm not sure he's really even proven. And he's had moments that are really strong. And then Jamison Crowder. But Jamison Crowder is a slot receiver, and he's not particularly an elite one. He's a good player, but he's not an elite player. He's not going to carry this offense. So I think the Buffalo Bills are going to be this is going to be a beatdown from
we'll
Buffalo
see. I mean, it would make sense, right? Certainly the Bills offense with Stephon Diggs and Zach Moss and all that adds. You said continuity, because going into last year the line was totally rebuilt.
And Trey Edmonds second year, Trey Edmonds is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. On the Jets side. Again, when they had CJ Mosley on defense, it looked like a good defense in week 1. So we'll see about that. Knock on wood, may he stay healthy. Otherwise, the Jets actually overachieved. Greg Williams had them overachieving on defense a lot last year, especially down the stretch. For a while, they were a good fantasy defense. And then, like you said, Darnold and throw to Jamison Crowder 15 times. Frank Gore gets 10 carries. Gore with the Jets. You got to love that. Gore and Gase. Whenever there is the affinity there. There is an affinity there.
Frank Gore, if someone could this is my wish. This is my Evan Silva talking at O'Brien type of thing. This is my talking to Frank Gore thing, as if it's actually going to happen. And say, Frank Gore, can you please take Kenneth Dixon under your wing and work with him, because that guy could be the second most talented back on the roster in terms of under 30. And this is a guy that just needs to stay healthy. If he could stay healthy, I think he still has starter talent, but he's probably not even going to make this team, at the rate that his career has gone.
Another one in the Matt Waldman favorite graveyard, headed for the graveyard. One for the grave. I don't know.
We need a junkyard, like an auto graveyard,
junkyard, yes.
with a bunch of players, and we could have the
graphics person. Yeah, we need 5-ish to get on that.
Yeah, 5-ish do that, and we need a kind of a mangy black and white cat with a thick chain around its neck, kind of guarding behind the fence. Yeah, Perfect. Eating a tire or something. Yeah, we can name him Zook.
Zook, exactly. Zook guarding the football junkyard. Here's a transition for you. Indianapolis at Jacksonville. Did you see the Jacksonville schedule release, all cat video oriented?
No.
It was brilliant. Brilliant.
That's awesome.
It was like 1:20 of all these different cat clips from the internet that fit with the opponents.
Okay.
It's really good.
Were the cats beating down the opponents?
Yeah, of course. Okay, every single one. Like they play the Bears, and it's the clip of when a bear goes up to sniff a cat, and the cat goes bam, 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 and the bear's like, "Oh, I was just coming to shake your hand." Anyway, Indy Jacksonville. Phillip Rivers, the Indianapolis Colt quarterback, debut at Jacksonville.
This could be a lot of fun because Phillip Rivers is just mistake prone enough to keep the Colts or keep the Jaguars in this game if Jaguars underachieve early. But then you look at the Jaguars and think of Gardner Minshew being made the guy. I bet he's hyped up for that. And the team probably feels good about that to an extent, even with all the turmoil. And listen, I mean, I know a lot of people wanted to see, Leonard Fournette get traded. But, I know our buddy Eric Stoner, I remember we're watching a game and, you watch Leonard Fournette, and he seemed to be the only one that actually gave a darn towards the end of the season, or one of the few players that really did. You could tell he wanted to win, where the rest of this team was like ready to give up on Khan and the rest of the crew there in the front office. So I'm glad that they kept him. I think he's a good player, and I think that against the Colts, still you can still run on the Colts to a degree, I think, and I think this is a team that could give the Colts some trouble. It's going to be a good divisional matchup, and the Colts should win, but the Jaguars can make this close if Minshew can do what he's supposed to do, and then you get and that frees up Fournette a little bit because they've got some really awesome wide receivers in that group.
Yeah, the first half of the year Minshew was spunky. The Jags were spunky, and then the second half of the year was like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Like the group meetings.
It was Marone wanting to put Foles in there. I'm watching I'm watching the rerun of The Wire, and there's this guy who's his Sergeant Marimo, who kind of like screws up the
no inspiration or individual thought at all. Yeah.
Foles was Marimo in that offense.
Exactly,
let's wreck this team. Let's put in the guy
Did
here.
You see that Kima and Bubs did like an online thing, just like
really?
Yeah,
cool.
Wire. Yeah, it was really cool. I didn't see it. I found a documentary about Melvin Williams too, the guy that plays the church guy who was actually the Baltimore Kingpin.
Yeah,
in real life. Anyway, so Indy. I'm excited to see Indy with Rivers. The defense with Buccaneers is going to be fun. Jacksonville sold off some of their best defensive pieces, Boye and Calais Campbell this offseason. They may or may not be changing up their defense a little bit. I don't know. It's like you said, it looks like a blowout, but division game. I mean, it looks like a game Indy should win, but you never know.
Yeah.
Chargers in the Tyrod Taylor, Justin Herbert era go to Cincinnati. Oh, by the way, you asked about Cleveland. They play Cincinnati and Washington in weeks 2 and 3. So there's some momentum. There's a chance for some momentum.
Yeah.
New age dawning, the Burrow age. Chargers at Bengals.
Yeah, that could be fun, and I think that it's a situation where Burrow gets a taste of, a pretty good group of bookend pass rushers. So
Jonah Williams too. Welcome to the NFL, Jonah Williams.
True. So you're going to get a chance for him to see how good he really is going to be in the pocket against a 3-4 defense that has some nice players who can get pressure. And we should have a healthy secondary for the Chargers, which also is going to be good to see whether Burrow can be tested and his arm is going to be enough to make some of the throws without, they're all pro caliber safety being able to come back there and be able to take some of those passes away. So I would actually anticipate this being a closer game and being probably one of the more fun games of the week, just because of the fact that, I think that the Chargers can get out to a lead, but I just don't know how much their offense is going to be able to maintain that lead.
Yeah.
And because DJ Reader and Geno Atkins together, and with some smart young linebackers, they might get fooled a bit, and the run game might be able to open some creases and do some things. But I think this is going to be a tight ball game because it's going to be one of those like 17-14 games where like Burrow comes back at the end and makes it close, but we don't know.
Just like Kyler Murray against Detroit last year, right?
Yeah.
Like send that game to overtime. I was actually in the Phoenix airport for that overtime. It was fun. Lots of people got on the plane and they were the car was going to be blown out, and then they landed on the plane, looked at the TVs, and saw that it was overtime. We're like, what? Chargers. This team is built for 17-14 games now, right? I mean, and I also look at that game. The first thing that I think about, Matt, is Kenneth Murray. Against a team that's probably going to spread the field out and throw a lot. And let's see. I mean, I have no idea how he's going to do against that. I certainly, as his offensive coordinator, like Brian Callahan, would be drawing up plays to isolate him in pass coverage. And Joe Burrow in NFL setting, it's going to be fun with AJ Green, knock on wood. Did he stay healthy? Real quick as an aside for this, because we're doing rankings now. And you did upside projections. I mean, not projections, upside tags. It's cool because you put on that lens and we start, we're prepared for the season, just like the schedule coming out.
Sure.
And people putting together rankings. How much, if at all, Matt, do you think we should weigh the possibility of a holdout into Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard's draft ranking value?
I think we should probably weigh, early, you probably do it now. I mean, you probably weigh it fairly heavy and then you just keep going as
like,
you
would
go.
you move Joe Mixon down a spot or two in your rankings because of it? Or move Bernard up?
I would move. Yeah, I'd move Joe Mixon down several spots in my rankings, keep Bernard where he is. And I'd start looking to see whether Rodney Anderson's healthy enough.
Right.
And move him up at least out of the basement. He still might be in the subfloor of my house, but he's at least outside of, I don't know. He's certainly he's not underground. Let's put it that way.
Right. What I'm getting from you is you're taking it seriously. Like you're saying, I don't know, 5-10% chance, like not an insignificant infinitesimal chance that Mixon holds out.
Yeah, because he's young. He knows he's good. And again, he's young, which means he's probably immature, which likely means that he's probably listening to his agent. He's either not listening to his agent as he should, or he's listening too much and doesn't know how, who he should be trusting. So it's going to be one of those situations where, maybe that, or he's trying to force his way out of Cincinnati, thinking that if he can do this, maybe he can get his way out because he knows that this organization has had a bad history and maybe he feels that way.
On some level, he probably knows, but then there's always the franchise tag and so on. Okay, turn the page. This is fun. I'm enjoying this. I hope you out there are too. And of course, I hope you are, Matt. I don't ever want to bore you. The NFL Week 1 schedule shouldn't. Green Bay. And right. I mean, the first Green Bay game after that. And it should be interesting. Look, I would love to watch this game just through the lens of, will Aaron Rodgers make more plays in structure? Like, will he be... I mean, come on. I don't think it takes a detective to see that Aaron Rodgers is not the quarterback that Matt LaFleur wants. He wants Kirk Cousins. He wants a quarterback who's just going to play in structure. So that's going to be interesting to watch. And he's facing Kirk Cousins. What's that?
What an idiot.
I know. I mean, but there are throws that Rodgers just isn't taking. That's just what he's doing. And I mean, that's been driving the ball. So, and he plays, again, Kirk Cousins, Minnesota. Green Bay at Minnesota.
This is just one of those situations where, again, divisional game. It's fun that they're having some divisional games early. That's always a positive. And we've already talked about 2 of them already from this perspective. And obviously this is Aaron Rodgers' team for the next 2 years. They've already said that they think Jordan Love is probably going to sit for a couple of years. Now we've heard that before, and then teams get excited and something happens, but I don't think that is remotely the case here with Green Bay's case. And if, when I say Matt LaFleur is an idiot for that, I mean, listen, I don't think it was LaFleur that wanted Love. I think it was Gutenkist who actually wanted LaFleur, so LaFleur probably just wants the structure and wants Aaron Rodgers to do his job, which isn't idiotic at all. Right. It's just, he wants, but maybe he just doesn't know how to go about it from a personality leadership standpoint to jibe with Rodgers in a way that somebody else would. And that's not idiotic. That's hard to do sometimes. Some people have great strategies, but they suck at leadership. And most people do. I mean, that's why so many companies are the way they are, is because we hire people based on their intellect, but not on their wisdom. So, this could be one of those deals. But I think Green Bay, it's going to come down to the receivers. How good the receivers can be. Devin Funchess being added. I mean, that tells me that you're going for a layup here. You're not really going for the slam dunk type of pick when you add Devin Funchess, who's the the Dante Moncrief of the NFC, I guess, or the kind of guy that like every team seems to be positive about, but never really comes through on that high level. I remember I said I had like a don't draft list. We can add Dante Moncrief was the poster child of that. Devin Funchess is certainly the understudy to the poster child at this point for that type of pick. So, Alan Lazard will probably outplay him there. But again, you look at this team, and I just think that Minnesota's going up. The Packers are heading, either in neutral or heading down, unless they can get just dynamic play out of one of their receivers like Marquez Valdez-Scantling or Alan Lazard, or, they wake up and go, you know what, that guy Jake Kumaro that just keeps to be hanging around, maybe we should actually let him be a player and not just tag him as a backup for reasons that, I don't know, just stupid reasons overall. So, I don't think this is going to be a close game. I actually think that Minnesota could basically blow the Packers out of the water. But again, it's a division game and it's the first week, and Kirk Cousins might decide to, like, I don't know, waddle back with the football in a crazy situation like he's done in the past and do something hilariously, off the wall that will be on Twitter for ages.
Yeah, well, Minnesota, you got Justin Jefferson debut, got breaking in some new players on defense, whole new cornerback group. Jeff Gladney, first round pick. I feel some vitriol coming from you. I like your flow, Matt, when you were talking about Green Bay. It's for frustrated, and you're right to say that it might really just be that Aaron Rodgers doesn't want anyone else to take his controller and be in control. He wants to hold his controller, and that's just how he's going to play the game. He's one of the best ever to play the game at the position. And who's going to tell him not to do that? But Matt LaFleur, the way he conceives of football is, I want to have a controller on the quarterback. I want to be able, and it's almost like Gutekunst not getting wide receivers is this assertion, like, it's not your personnel that's the problem, it's you.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Again, I'm just being unfiltered tonight. So the way I look at it is like this. I'll put it this way, in that, certainly I have all the respect in the world for a lot of these people who've attained what they've done. But if I'm just talking like I was at a bar, I just say that, Aaron Rodgers is acting like an immature idiot right now, because he wants to do things his way or the highway, and it hasn't worked. When's the last time you've been to the Super Bowl, Aaron Rodgers? And how many times have you had chances for that to happen? Maybe you should listen to somebody. But at the same time, if they're going to bring in a guy like Matt LaFleur, who maybe just isn't quite experienced enough to be able to handle a superstar quarterback because he's never had that opportunity, maybe they made the wrong pick in the coach to be able to do that job. Because if Andy Reid came in there and said, Aaron, we need you to do this, you bet your
it's respect
hind parts that
you earn the respect. Yes, and I think that's the thing that you have to recognize, because you see how other the superstar quarterbacks are being treated at this late end of the part of their career.
He's good enough that if you can just nudge him in the right direction with just small things to change. Don't make him seem like he's awful and he has to reinvent the wheel. Just do small things and give a little bit to make him work. You're going to look like a much more of a genius, Matt LaFleur, if you actually do an offense that's geared towards Aaron Rodgers rather than force Aaron Rodgers to be in your offense. It's just you're making the same mistake that countless head coaches who are now TV analysts have made.
Right. Or people in marriages end up divorced,
True.
You just have to be like, what do you like to do? What concepts? How do you see the field? What makes sense to you? How do you read the field? Let's talk about that. What are your favorite routes to have different guys on this
Accept the person for who they are, flaws and not, and work with that, as opposed to, well, I'm gonna be agreeable to everything and then change everything late in the game. That ain't gonna work.
This is a great transition. I'm just reading these in order. By the way, I put these in order, I think, by like the time slot, although I don't know what the order is other than that, right? Speaking of accepting people for who they are and so on. We've got also the whole NFC North squares off. Chicago, Nick Foles goes to Detroit.
Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham. Yeah. And Detroit and Matt Patricia and DeAndre Swift. We're going to run the ball. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Every time I think of Chicago, I start trying to limit hysterical laughter at this stage. And it stinks because they're such a great organization historically. But when I think of Ryan Pace drafting Mitchell Trubisky, and then I think of the face Mitchell Trubisky makes, he always looks like that kid in The Sixth Sense who plays the Tommy Tomasino. If you remember who he is, he's the kid who plays the actor. And he's always like posing and stuff. He kind of reminds me of this little kid. So anyway, Trubisky just looks like a kid who's pouting every time like something goes wrong, and it goes wrong a lot. And you look at Pace drafting him, thinking he's going to be our next Drew Brees, and then they add Jimmy Graham, and that's when I just start breaking out into laughter, because as much as I love Jimmy Graham's career, he's done. And they had like 10 tight ends on the roster at some point, and then they added another. Let's not be patient with Adam Shaheen, Ben Broniker. If you're talking about a junkyard for like tight ends who weren't quite good enough to be starters in the way that they hoped, Chicago would be that one. But I don't know. I hear the Three Stooges theme music when I think of the Chicago Bears right now. And when you think about Detroit, I mean, I think Detroit's heading in the right direction with what they're trying to do. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to be able to execute. It's like they're a little you kind of wonder if they're a little cursed, the way the things have worked out. I mean, you get Matt Stafford, break bones in his back, all this kind of stuff, but he's got tight coverage. He's got receivers who'll catch the ball in tight coverage. I mean, Marvin Jones a couple of years ago was the best in the league at it. Kenny Galladay can do it. Quintez Cephas basically feasted on Big Ten corners doing it that way. And then you have a loaded backfield. I mean, even Bo Scarborough can get the job done between the tackles if you need him to. So their backfield is good enough, especially with Kerryon Johnson still leading the way, and Swift is kind of a back, kind of a complement back at this stage. You've got some things there, a young offensive line. Hawkinson, if he gets it together, you got a superstar potential tight end right there. And this defense, I mean, up front, they need some work for sure, but they've had a decent secondary. They added Marcus Trufant, and there's a guy who, writes for the recaps for the Falcons. He's kind of that guy who gets it done, but sometimes he gets it done in unconventional ways, meaning he doesn't have great technique. And it's going to be interesting to see how much he gets exposed in a different division as a result of that. But I think he'll be decent. He just won't be Darius Slay. He's not going to.
Right. They got Jeff Okudah. He could be Darius Slay.
He very well could be Darius Slay. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. But I think Detroit's the clear winner here. It's really about whether or not Matt Stafford can fit the ball in. The receivers are going to make the catches and not make mistakes due to that Chicago defense. It's really the Lions offense versus Chicago defense.
Chicago defense, that when they're front forward in the game, in the flow of the game, that's the good games for the Bears. And then Foles not losing it, basically. And hopefully getting harnessing a little more of Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller's talent. We'll see about David Montgomery. We'll see. We'll see. And on the Detroit side, like you talked about, I mean, the whole Slay to Okudah thing is there. Matthew Stafford's good. I think people might have forgotten that Matthew Stafford's good. TJ Hawkinson. I've
been holding the torch for Matt Stafford for years now, man.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, hey, 2011, the year that didn't have an offseason, was his career year. And it was a great year for Detroit. I'm going to go on the soapbox here now, since you've been opening up the Unfiltered. And I think I've already hinted at this a few times, but I look at Chicago, and I get it. Okay? Like, well, we want to have Nick Foles knows the offense, right? Nick Foles and Nagy have worked together, and no offseason. And, Foles is going to be able – I mean, they really went after Foles. I think they went after Foles before – Teddy was signed. I mean, they traded a 4th-round pick for him. You know what I mean? Like, they really zeroed in on Foles. What this team screamed out for was signing Cam Newton. It just screamed out for it. And this just comes into a larger thing, Matt, where, I mean, I get it. Oh, is Newton healthy or not? Teams don't know. Like, this is reminding me of, like, the Culpepper Breeze offseason, right? Like, how healthy. Like, there's these quarterbacks that are both – well, Breeze wasn't actually held in that high regard at that point, but he was still at least a starting quarterback. And Culpepper was certainly held in high regard, but they both had pretty serious injuries the year before and what was going to happen. But the point was that, at that point in time, two different franchises said, we're willing to turn our franchise over to this quarterback. And the Saints have been forever changed for it. Dolphins, I don't know. But whatever. How has a team not looked at what Cam Newton's body of work is and say, we're willing to do that this offseason? How is that possible? I think there's more to it. I really think some of the stuff that we hear people say that sometimes is just, I don't know, ignorant, for a better word, it might be kind of how he's viewed around the league. I don't know. I mean, I guess Ron Rivera still holds him in high regard. I'm just flabbergasted, Matt, that a quarterback with Newton's resume can just be allowed, just sit out there on the market. Like now he's saying he's going to accept being a backup. And to that I said, Mike Tomlin, make your pitch. Go to man, and say Ben Roethlisberger's going to be here forever. We're cool, like I see you for who you are, and I accept you for who you are. And we think you would be the next great quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just come and hang out with us for a few years, and it'll be yours. I don't know.
I love that idea, and I'm saying that totally as someone who likes to root against the Steelers.
Yeah.
Even so, just in theory, I would love the idea of Cam Newton being a Pittsburgh Steeler. In terms of just trying to take away my fandom from that standpoint, the Nick Foles thing to me, again, it's just an overly safe pick that turns out to be too dangerous. Right. If anything, I mean, the Jaguars probably feel like, you mean you're gonna evict those tenants who aren't paying rent, who are like damaging our house and like screwing up the plumbing and like not cutting their yard, and you're gonna take them off our hands? You're going to do that for us, really? And you're going to give us you're going to allow us to, have the tenant that we want in there? Sure, please. Can we do that immediately? Because everyone wants to talk about Nick Foles winning a Super Bowl, and that's all fine and well. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl.
Sure.
Eli Manning won a Super Bowl, and I mean those guys. Yeah, I mean, again, they're okay quarterbacks, but they're not guys you're going to pay, that kind of money.
Or just say
and do that type of
and Pace and Nagy are kind of saying you're our hope to save our jobs at this point. Honestly, if the Bears are being rational about the direction of the franchise, okay, transition. Go ahead. Yeah, right. That's what I think too. That's what I think too. That's why I asked Matt Harmon, our mutual friend, who he wants Allen Robinson to sign with in free agency next year. Other than a bunch of people said they'll tag him. Yeah, they probably will. Anyway, transition time from Cam Newton to his old team. The Las Vegas Raiders, get used to saying that, go to Carolina. Matt Rule. I don't know what we would call that, this could be a snappy nickname for that, I'm sure. But the Raiders get a chance to get off to a nice start here.
They do. But at the same time, it comes down to, when you look at Carolina, they're getting a lot quicker up front. So they're trying to be more explosive up front, and I think that they have a chance to do that. The linebacker core without Luke Kuechly, that's going to be a big deal. Fill,
this is where I'm going with this. Okay, I'll go with Carolina's defense is just being like leveled. Carolina's defense is like one of those buildings that you go past, and it's just like all the whatever, like the steel and
it's been concrete. Stripped of the copper wire, of the copper piping, and
exactly,
and all the aluminum.
I mean, it's not ready to be lived in yet, and they have to face the Raiders. Have a good offensive line. The Raiders will execute well on offense. I mean, I'm not saying I think it's going to be fun to see what Teddy and company do with this offense. I think they're going to come out kind of aggressive, come out firing. But you just look at the back of this defense. It's Trey Boston. Go ahead.
In the 70s, we did this all the time against truck, with trucks out in the car because we want to hear the truck blow its horn. Well, that's what Josh Jacobs is going to be doing in the end zone probably in this game, an awful lot. So,
like you said, Panthers front four, that's interesting, good. Brian Burns and Quan Short, Derek Brown, of course, the first round pick.
They got to pass them.
Yeah, Stephen. Yeah, exactly. Without Kuechly, it's like the defense needs a heart transplant, basically. Without Kuechly, Raiders, and it's funny that you mentioned that too about trying to get the trucks, the 18-wheelers go. Because another thing that occurs to me, Matt, that I'm sure you'll say nod along, because we're old dudes just reminiscing. Soon we'll just change the Thursday night show to old dudes reminiscing. That's what this is. But I'm sad that kids now don't get the experience of talking on a CB radio.
That's true. There you go.
It was so much fun, like to get on the CB and like see who you would pick up out there, and have your CB handle, and just a whole different wavelength.
That was it was a mystery to be able to communicate with that many people. Now it's like it's a pain in the ass.
Right. Too true. So Vegas at Carolina. Here's a fun one. Again, keeping with the divisional. Not only does the NFC North match up within the division, totally. So does the AFC East. The last time we saw Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Miami Dolphins, they landed the shot that blew open the hole that allowed Tennessee to blow up the Death Star. And indeed, the Death Star is in pieces, and the Ewoks are celebrating, and all that other good stuff. They're going to the Jarrett Stidham, Bill Belichick, New England Patriots, Week 1. Get out your popcorn.
Oh, without a doubt for that. And I think Miami wins this game too. I think this is a, you look at Matt Breida, he'll be healthy. That trade was an awesome trade to pair him with Jordan Howard. Those are two really unsung backs. And they're kind of like they're the most underrated thunder and lightning combo of running backs in the league. Preston Williams, if he's healthy enough, and if Devontae Parker, if somebody just begs Devontae Parker to keep doing what he did
Parker against Gilmore. You remember what Parker was doing to Gilmore, who was coming, he was like NFL player of the year, NFL player of the year level player coming into that game.
Yeah.
And Parker just took his lunch money over and over again.
Yeah. And so we have that with, two receivers who are capable of being able to do that against the top corner. You have two strong running backs. Mike Gesicki, whatever you want to think about him, he's actually getting some good work up the seam. And if they can, and you have some athletic guys in the secondary, and this is against an inexperienced quarterback.
Right. Byron Jones and Xavier Howard against N'Keal Harry
and probably Jeff Thomas at this point, right. Maybe who I think might be the most talented receiver.
Yeah, he's the most. I said he was the most dynamic receiver on the roster.
Yeah, I think he is too. To be honest, I thought he was everything KJ Hamler is, except with a worse
character
attitude.
issues.
Yeah, maybe they'll bring Mark Richt and Manny Diaz up to fire him up.
Exactly.
But anyway, seriously, they this game is going to come down to Sony Michel in the ground game, whether it's Michel, James White, and probably Damian, Harris. If any of those three guys, if any of those guys can be decent enough to be able to run on Miami's front, and they can keep that going, and Stidham can just make smart plays, and really he probably can make smart plays. Can his receivers make smart plays? If they can do the job, then I think that you've got something here. But I think this is going to be a game that's either going to be a close win by the Dolphins or a blowout by the Dolphins, but I don't think it's going to be the Patriots at all.
No, not at all. Well, because the New England defense that was controlling games in the first half of the year last year isn't the same New England defense. They don't have Jamie Collins. They don't have Kyle Van Noy. And the offense is just going to be,
Stidham might
the worst offense in the league, probably.
Stidham can develop. I'm sure that there's a chance that he can develop and be good, but it's like, what have they done with wide receivers? I say this every year.
Yeah, right.
Every year, it's like, who's the outside receiver? I don't know, because N'Keal Harry's a slot, Jeff Thomas is a slot, Julian Edelman's a slot. Who's not a slot receiver?
Kobe Myers is a slot.
Yeah, all of them are slot receivers. It's like someone just like. It's like they have I have this preamp, and it's like if the preamp were set to drafting players that would just be stuck on slot. Like Bill Belichick took tape and literally just put tape over the slot lever, and it's stuck there. I don't know what they're doing with that.
Right. First post Brady era Belichick game in Miami. It's going to be good. Staying within the theme of division matchups. And we've seen this one Week 1 a couple of years, most memorably whenever Michael Vick just embarrassed Washington. Just flat out embarrassed them. Last year, Case Keenum and Terry McLaurin kept them in the game. In fact, got out to a lead. Philly going to Washington.
That should be a fun game, just because the offensive line, this is the first chance or maybe the only chance that the Washington offensive line will stay healthy based on what they've done over the past several years. They have a talented line, even without Trent Williams. They have some talent there, but they always seem to get banged up. But it's fun to be able to watch Adrian Peterson and maybe some Antonio Gibson and Darius Geis, who Doug Williams came out and said this offseason, he's like that kid you got to put a leash on. Literally said that he goes, I like him. He's a fun kid, but you've got to kind of put a leash on him when you take him out places. And I'm sitting there thinking, that's great. So Darius Geis, basically trade Darius Geis if you're in a dynasty league, and no one else has heard this, because you might as well recoup what you can from him. He's an ultra talented running back, but obviously he's a knucklehead, because this is, they drafted Antonio Gibson. They added Peyton Barber, and they still have Adrian Peterson. That tells me they don't trust Darius Geis a lick. So he might have a good week in the first couple of weeks, and then they try to trade his behind so they don't have to deal with them. But against the Eagles, I mean, listen, they have a decent defensive front. They have some makings of being able to have a pass rush.
Darius Slay against Terry McLaurin.
Yes, that should be fun. But then you still have the fact that, you're going to have Jalen Reagor. You're going to have healthy Alshon Jeffrey, at least for 3 quarters. I don't know, maybe longer. Hopefully will be. They have enough talent there, especially with their tight ends, and the matchup with their tight ends against Washington secondary, I think will be too much for them, and the Eagles do it this time.
Washington's defense is going to be a fascinating watch every week, Matt, because their defensive line might be the best in the whole league, but the back 7 of the defense is just going to be like, and if you just can find ways to test them, and like you said with Philly, the last time we saw Philly's offense, it was a punchline, and yet they still won the division. They're the real punchline's Dallas, right?
Darius Slay's like duct tape put across the secondary, and it's like holding, but you can see everything rattling. Like you're on a plane, and they've duct taped the cabin together.
Malcolm Jenkins is gone too. Malcolm Jenkins is in New Orleans now.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Philly and the linebackers, like name a Philly linebacker. Seattle at Atlanta. Seattle at Atlanta. There's the first game. If you want to recap, I'm not trying to put you on the spot and ask you right now either. But anyway, Seattle at Atlanta.
That might be one of the best games of the week, actually, when you think about it, because Atlanta certainly has the passing game. Seattle can throw when they're nudged to. When Russell, it's like, Russell Wilson's like the modern John Elway with, Dan Reeves being played by a more colorful personality and Pete Carroll. 3 quarters of running and then like, oh shoot, let's put Russell Wilson back into the game here. But seriously, this is a game that could go back and forth. I think both teams want to run the ball a little bit more. Seattle's going to have more success, I think, than Atlanta might. But then again, with Seattle's defense, some of the losses that they had, Todd Gurley might get off to a good start. And so this could be fun. And then of course, with the secondary, I think that Atlanta, to me, this is the game where Atlanta's the better team. Russell Wilson's the best player. Right. So what you end up having is Russell Wilson against a good team. And often that means it's a close game and it comes down to the wire. And if somebody else happens to help out Seattle, they might win this game. This is David versus Goliath like it is every week.
Yeah. Well, wasn't there a famous playoff game between these two with Russell Wilson and it was in some ways, Atlanta pulled out the win, but Russell Wilson all but brought them back. 27-7. The score was 27-7 Falcons going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And they actually went ahead with 31 seconds left, 28-27. And I don't remember what it was that set up the Matt Bryant field goal. But so,
Russell Wilson. That's the story of Russell Wilson right there.
Where was when he was born. That was really when he was born, I think, in that game. Took that.
Because that was his rookie year. That was his rookie year.
It was his rookie year.
After they whipped Washington in Washington.
Well, no, after Robert Griffin III's career, you saw Robert Griffin III's soul jump out of his body. That's what happened in that game.
I tried revisionist history there. It worked in America, right? So I figured it could work. Okay, anyway. There we go.
They're doing it on the fly.
Unfiltered today. There we go.
Always unfiltered.
All right.
Always unfiltered. Felix Sharp says Davis Brown's a good player. He is a good player. And we'll see if Jim Schwartz can get something out of him. You're right. You're right. I shouldn't scoff. Seattle at Atlanta. So, we'll see. Seattle's run defense could be really bad. So you're right. I'm thinking Todd Gurley DFS when I see that. You said the good games, one of the better games of the week. How about this? New Orleans at Tampa Bay.
Oh yeah, that's going to be fun. Listen, I can't wait to see all this 12 personnel being run with Gronkowski and Howard, and then them open it up to an empty set with those four receivers out there. This is going to be a lot of fun. And then when you look at what New Orleans is capable of doing and they're at home. Oh, I think
at Tampa.
It's at Tampa. Oh, it's at Tampa. Woo! Tampa could win this game then because we know with Breeze outdoors, that's always
the energy.
A little bit of
well, I don't know if there'll be a crowd there, but
Yeah.
energy in the city.
Well, they'll shoot the cannon a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. The props are still allowed to.
Yeah,
What
that's
a game. What a game to launch the Tom Brady era. What a game. I don't even sure what else to say. New Orleans is going to be basically the same New Orleans team you saw last time out. Malcolm Jenkins is back
well,
now.
here's the thing. Emmanuel Sanders is a big boost to that team.
That's true.
That's actually a massive boost because he actually made Jimmy Garoppolo look like a near Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, which, again, this is going to be fun to see whether Kyle Shanahan, with his mark on the team, whether or not he can, not having a wide receiver, whether or not they can actually be a passing offense this year. But they took Emmanuel Sanders, who is, man, he's a raging mad wide receiver who doesn't feel like he's gotten his due. And with Drew Brees, he's going to go out on a good note if he can stay healthy. I mean, this is going to be an insanely good passing offense with him and Drew Brees. I would watch Drew Brees this year. Big time.
I mean, the last time we saw Emmanuel Sanders, he was wide open to take the lead in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, and Garoppolo missed him.
Yeah,
he can still play. He was about to make the biggest play of his career and get another ring maybe on it, and Garoppolo couldn't execute.
He made a good hop to another team that has a chance to win it because, boy, that's somebody who for someone who felt like he was
Winston's
stuck in
head
Denver.
too. Don't you think that was in the back of Winston's head? Like the idea of getting a ring with these guys?
Yeah, of course it was. It had to be. And also, probably he's had enough conversations with Drew Brees, probably being guys who've played in the same division, that felt like that this would be a good opportunity for him to learn some things, or for them to be able to work with him on a level, and that he felt like he'd get a fair shake. So whatever you think about Winston, the player, and his opportunities to really grow and develop, this gives him a fighting chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Emmanuel Sanders and Michael Thomas.
Yeah, and Jared Cook and Alvin Kamara.
Yeah,
healthy Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
Okay, staying with the theme of good games. Arizona at San Francisco.
Oh yeah,
remember, these teams played each other close last year.
Yeah, they really did. And then you add in the fact that you're going to have, a healthy full complement of receivers. You get Nuke Hopkins, who's going to beat the hell out of any San Francisco cornerback in terms of just like mugging them. And, he's like, DeAndre Hopkins is like, I don't know how to put this without, I'll put it this way. He's like, he has a bully mentality as a receiver that I admire greatly. And he knows how to play within the gray area of the rules better than any receiver in the league. Like I bet he studies refs and knows which refs let him do what, and studies what he can get away with early. And if they let him do it, then he's off to the races. Yep. And I think he is going to completely beat the crap out of the NFC West in that first year, just like completely maul defensive backs. And then
Richard Sherman against DeAndre Hopkins week 1.
Yeah. And Garoppolo, I've made fun of Garoppolo in the past, but he's done some decent work in the pocket. He's still up and down with it. And at key moments, you still worry. So if this game gets close,
right,
and you get those bookends of Chandler Jones and Chase on, coming after him, we might see him have to look to the sideline for a packet of Pampers, but we'll see how this goes. This is going to be a close game, I think.
By the way, Chason's in Jacksonville, but Isaiah Simmons.
That's who I was thinking. Simmons. That's who I was thinking. I was thinking about a mock draft. Yeah,
I'd rather have Simmons.
Yeah,
they got DeAndre. They also got Devon Kennard, Devontae Campbell,
and Kennard can pass rush.
Yeah, and they're not going to be without Peterson to start the season like they were last year. So they got.
Go ahead.
That's going to be fun. Oh, it's just going to be fun. That's a fun matchup. No,
and imagine this. Imagine this. You've got Fitzgerald. You've got Fitzgerald still plays pretty well for an old man, 16th year, and then you have Hopkins. But what if Hakeem Butler actually starts to show up in this particular offense, and you have those kinds of options, because he still might be one of their. To say that he's the third best contested ball catcher on that team,
sure,
is still saying something, considering the two that are ahead of him.
Let's put it this way. Isabella and Butler are both going to be interesting players, because if now that you add DeAndre Hopkins, you make a big leap forward to the true conception of this offense, right? Because you have Hopkins and Fitzgerald who can just beat their guy one-on-one, and you have Kirk who can run inside, outside, has some downfield speed. But what you really want to do is have these 4 and 5 wide receiver sets, right?
Right.
Where you have Andy Isabella on someone who can't run with him, or you have Hakeem Butler on someone who can't jump with him or run with him, because Butler's got that glide, that long stride glide, and now you're facing them against 3rd and 4th cornerbacks. That's how you win games.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's fun. But I want to just put this out there into the universe, and I want to make sure we get through. We have 3 more games to get through because it's making a nice, elegant show. Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm going to go down Narrative Street. Come and take a walk on Narrative Street.
Look, are there potholes strewn on this one?
Always. It's New Orleans Street. I live in New Orleans. Okay. So the last time we saw Jimmy Garoppolo, again, I bring it up. It's Emmanuel Sanders. What did we hear all offseason? San Francisco might go. I mean, Kyle Shanahan didn't even try to save Garoppolo's feelings. He's like, yeah, we thought about Tom Brady. When Kirk Cousins got signed, it was like, well, there's the dream of Kirk Cousins for Kyle Shanahan gone. I mean, it's out there that this team, that Kyle Shanahan might feel like he could do better than Jimmy Garoppolo. The last time we saw Jimmy Garoppolo, you were left with this feeling of the only reason San Francisco lost the game was because of Garoppolo, that when he needed to do something, it was clear. And it was one of those feelings, Matt, almost like watching the Bears. And I know Garoppolo had some good games. I know Garoppolo had the great game against the Saints here in New Orleans and so on. But at that moment, you could feel it slipping away. Everybody watching that game could feel it slipping away. And you did not have confidence that Garoppolo was going to grab it as it was slipping away. And the whole offseason to think about it. And we'll see, man. We'll see. I'm just saying, like, psychologically, quarterbacks are just behind kickers in this way that they can be doing it. And then once they lose their stride, lose their mojo, it's hard to get it back sometimes. I don't know. I'm just going to be watching that this year because that has been out there all offseason. Okay, Sunday Night Football. Go ahead. You want to say anything to that?
Well, I'm, seriously, I think there's something to be said about that. But if I'm going to invoke Cecil Lammey because we miss you, Cecil, then if I were going to do my best Cecil Lammey imitation, I would say, oh, Garoppolo's not going to really be a big deal with this. He's not even thinking about it. He's looking on Pornhub for his next date.
Right. It's like Cecil's here. I'm gonna cry. That's great. And Jimmy Garoppolo is so handsome that he probably shouldn't care. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Sunday Night Football. Your track meet Dallas Cowboys at your one-time track meet Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, this could still be a good one if Sean McVay figures out to make adjustments a little bit sooner. And if he's learned that lesson,
he's going to make the adjustments on defense now, don't you know?
Maybe. Hey, listen, if he can make adjustments sooner and he does that well, and he's not as stubborn about it, this team can still be good. It's not like, so, we can say all we want, but there's still a lot of talent on that offense. There's still some big playmakers on defense. It's the abilities there. It's just got to be cohesive. That said, that's going to be a real litmus test for how prepared they are to begin the year, because the Cowboys, I think, are going to be ready. I think the Cowboys are going to be massively ready. Yeah, well, Mike McCarthy, true, but
I'm trying to get you pumped up about that.
Listen, give him.
I'm joking.
Yeah, but listen, he's a great co-pilot, and so we have the airplane co-pilot thing that worked out last time. He certainly is that, but this team. Shoot, Dak Prescott with 5,000 yards, throwing 5,000 yards last year and close to it. I just think this team is ready to go offensively. The defense has some promise, has some moments, and against the Rams. I don't think this Rams unit is going to be that cohesive because the offensive line still struggled last year. Yep. Yeah, they're gonna switch to that gap running game, and maybe a big game out of Cam Akers or Darrell Henderson, and both those guys can run the heck out of gap. If one of them if one or both of them just starts breaking loose against the Cowboys defense early, this could cause the fans to riot against the Cowboys. They go into a shell, and then everybody questions the existence of football in Dallas, like they usually do when the team loses one game. But overall, the Cowboys should win this game handily.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun matchup. Yeah. Cowboys, changes on defense, doesn't matter because this team is now built for speed, built for points. Okay, Jalen Ramsey on Amari Cooper, or maybe Amari Cooper kicks inside of the slot, and then that's when Amari Cooper does a lot of damage. Welcome to the NFL CD Lamb, and whoever it is in the slot, or somebody is going to face up with I don't know who for the Rams. They've got Troy Hill, who made them. It's interesting. They traded away Marcus Peters, and Troy Hill really made that look like a good move until we saw Peters start to ball out for the Ravens. But Nicole Roby-Coleman leaving might be the bigger deal. I mean, I guess Terrell Burgess, the third-round safety, can also play in the slot. They're going to have a competition for the slot. Obviously, you're going to attack. Kellen Moore should have a game plan there. On the Rams side, yeah, it's offense trying to find itself still, I think.
Can we just randomly name a corner like for any team just the way you did and just call him Lord? I don't know who. And that can be like
he's going to be playing Lord. Exactly. Lord, I don't know who.
Exactly. And that could be the matchup of the week, when it's some random guy.
By the way, Lord, I don't know who is also starting an inside linebacker for the Rams. So, double duty.
Twins.
Exactly.
Wow.
Okay, Monday night, twofer, double dip. First one, Steelers at the Giants.
This could be fun just because
Roethlisberger's back.
You've got a good offensive line. And it's kind of, again, still a David and Goliath kind of scenario with Saquon Barkley, with his slingshot, Daniel Jones, trying to defeat the Goliath Steelers. And so this could be a good matchup here in terms of just intrigue. And Barkley has the kind of skills to take over a game with a Steelers defense that at times can be undisciplined and over aggressive, and you can see some dynamic plays out of him. So that works out pretty well. And, the receivers are healthy enough. This could be one of those games where Steelers fans are going to be doing their Yinzer deal on a regular basis where it's like, oh my God, our season's going to be screwed. We almost lost to the Giants. But I think the Steelers prevail.
Yeah. Remember, the Steelers defense is just a wrecking crew. I mean, they were dismantling teams last year.
Yeah. Well, maybe David Gettleman with his big binder can trip up Ben Roethlisberger, put it in the tunnel on the way out.
Exactly.
Or just drop it on his head, or I don't know, something like that.
And what are the Giants going to do on defense, really? I mean, they've signed James Brad, but they don't have an edge rush to speak of.
Yeah, unless it's Xavier Jimenez, and I don't think O'Shane Jimenez, but I don't know if he's much there, and Williams hasn't done much, and he's demanding to be paid like a defensive end, but they're using him as a defensive tackle,
right?
And all of that's a mess, man.
Yeah, it is. Steelers offensive line should at least feel good about themselves after that. And by the way, Xavier Jimenez would be the most awesome name because it's XX. I mean, with the XX initials,
it would.
That's it. Shut it down. Last game of the week one that we all hope we experience in early September. Ryan Tannehill and Tennessee go to Denver, Mile High. Drew Lock and the track team.
I think the track team could be so much fun this year, especially if they do go that two tight end look more often, and they split those guys out into empty a lot and do some of the things that I think New England's going to do. And if that happens, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. The defense, I think, will be healthy. I'm going to give the edge to Denver in this one, especially at Mile High. I like what Tennessee has done in the past. But I think Denver's going to be too healthy, and Drew Lock is going to be, and the offense is going to be good enough to be able to win this game.
Yeah, I just hope Denver's run defense is ready for that one. So fun times to look forward to. We always look forward to Thursday nights with everybody. Love you in the chat room. By the way, I just got to show you the co-pilots. We did the co-pilot line. Michael Prince said, "Who's inflating the co-pilot?" Gold, man, gold. The co-pilot thing's going to be. I mean, we got to write these all down somewhere. Like this, this should be all part of it. We need a gut check. We need an off-season gut check about movies from our childhood and current incarnations of these characters in the NFL. We like to incarnate this for everybody every week. We will get Cecil back, but we don't know if we need Cecil back as quickly, Matt. If you just do that once a week to invoke him, call him in like a seance, Cecil, come in and possess me. So you possess us folks to put out, it's what we love, talking about football, thinking about football. We love to do it for you. We're happy to have more and more things to talk about. We're still going to be here. So lots of things going on at Football Guys right now. If you just check it out. Everything's flower petals are opening back up, and rankings and projections and articles and all
trade values from Dan Hendry.
Yeah, Dan Hendry's dynasty work. I've heard more people talking to me about Dan Hendry's dynasty work this offseason than anything else. People are like, when's he going to put up the next trade value chart? When's he going to do this? I'm getting calls like, can I get in touch with Dan Hendry to do a radio spot with him? So
good.
Yeah, awesome stuff there. Thank you, folks. Always. We love you. Wear your mask, wash your hands, social distance, stay safe.